अस्सलाम वालेकुम कैसे हो?
अल्लाह का शुक्र है। आज हमने फिर एक और हफ्ता बीच में गैप ले लिया रमज़ान की सकाफ़त के हिसाब से और काम के लिहाज से। We couldn't do it back to back, but it's good to catch up with you again. मैंने आजकल तो सिर्फ ऐसी ही बात होगी, to be honest.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so let's just go straight up to what is our topic today, Mana?
I don't know, man. I don't remember. You tell us.
Okay, we have a very interesting one. I'll just give a twist to it before we ask the guest to come in. This is the topic where, honestly speaking, I don't think so I have much to say.
Yeah.
Because we are on one side of the spectrum, and I want like a third party or a viewpoint coming in rather than me telling. We will give our point of view, of course, later on. But I think the guest we have definitely has a lot more knowledge compared to anyone and the people who are listening in. So that's basically what we wanted to talk about today is the importance of PR. And PR is in a very loose term. PR for agencies. We know that, and I think we've been part of that. We know agencies are very good in making, brand imagery and all that for their clients. But when they think about themselves, they never think about how to, or perhaps they do think about it, but perhaps the work is not done to that same level. So we'll talk about that before any point of view you have. Before we
so basically I agree, right? So today we are at a learning stage, right? You and me both have been so close to the agency, and I think at some point we have tried to do it a little bit, like, we use our own Facebooks, LinkedIn to push stuff that the company is doing. But I think it's, even before we start this session, we bring in the next guest, right? Is the overall it has to be a strategic way that you want to portray, and it has to be a goal oriented way of defining how your agency should be perceived in front of, obviously, your clients or your potential clients, and also people who will be part of your agency in the future. So when you go for hiring, and if people don't know who you are, then they're not going to come and work for you, right? So my point of view is just that. I think I'm here to learn today. I do have a bit of point of view, and I think we can pick up as questions come in. I think let's start. Let's get the guest in, and then let's start the conversation.
Cool, sounds good. Okay, and we'll have Babar after this promo.
Assalamu alaikum, Babar.
Babar, what's up?
Intro.
What intro? Hey, it looks like it's like a Jimmy kind of live show, right?
Live from Kuala Lumpur. Yeah.
How are you? How's Ramadan treating you? Let's start with that first.
Alhamdulillah, I'm well, and Ramzan is going well as well.
Okay, we already have a 2 points. So I think let's start. Was it Ramadan going good for you, or Ramzan is going good for you?
Yeah, Ramzan's not going so bad. Ramadan is going really well.
Ramadan is going good for you. All right. So Babar, welcome to our show. Thank you for accepting the invite and being here. I know it's a bit late there. It's also late here in Malaysia. So what we do is we don't introduce the guests. We let the guests introduce themselves so that people know who you are. So just give a bit about who you are, what you do, where are you today, and then also how do you know me and Maz to start off with.
What I do right now, I'm an investigative journalist with Profit while I'm pursuing a master's in public affairs. And what I do with Profit is I cover the advertising and the media beat. And this would be my 4th year of covering the advertising and media beat in the APAC region. But with Profit, I'm very specific to the Pakistan market. And I'm sure you guys have seen my stuff that's ruffled a lot of feathers. And second question, I guess, what was it exactly?
How do you know
Where do you know me and Maz?
Oh, right. I know Minam from university. We were in Zabist. I think I'm pretty sure we were in the same batch together. And Maz, if I'm not mistaken, was 2 batches above me in Zabist. Like, and I don't think we met. But Maz was a colleague of my ex-business partner Sarosh Wais. So you guys worked together, Group M. I think you were at in the MEC team at the time.
Yes,
So
yes,
in that
yes.
way, I've heard of you, and obviously we've met, but we haven't directly, I think, collaborated in the past.
You haven't seen me in university because I never used to come to the university. I think that's the point.
And just to highlight that, even though he was two batches above us or two semesters, we did the thesis together. So you can imagine
Nice.
who was fast and who was slow.
Hmm.
So, all right. I think let's start. Maz, you want to go ahead with the first question? Let's just put it on the table and just start the conversation, man.
No, it's not a question. I think let's just start with the question. I think I just want to check, in fact, understand from you. Do you, and you work not for Pakistan, and we don't actually wanted to have this session for Pakistan. This is actually for agencies overall. Uh, do you think agencies take their brand as seriously as compared to perhaps client-side marketers? Do you think that they know that where exactly their brand is being placed, what people are talking about it, or do you think that they do, but it's a mixed bag? Some do really well, some don't do it at all.
In the Asia Pacific region, definitely. If you look at any of the agencies in Singapore and Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia, and all, there is a very concerted effort towards ensuring what is public relations. Public relations is perception manipulation. You have to broadcast messages out there so your stakeholders get the right message about you, whether they're investors or politicians or even customers. You don't see that much in Pakistan. When I was at campaign in Singapore with Campaign Asia Pacific, I dealt with. I think I met every single agencies, PR, dedicated PR and marketing person. So each and every one of these agencies, regardless if they were a network agency or independent agencies, they had a dedicated person whose entire job was to do the marketing, the B2B marketing for the agency itself, taking the agency as a client internally, and also doing its public relations. And that means they would deal with us as the press, or they would deal with analysts, or they would put out releases. You win a new client. You have to keep your top of mind recall with the press, with B2B press, and with niche audiences that are marketers or media planners and everything of that sort. And then you can also see this with companies that are technology oriented, but they serve the advertising industry. So Google and Facebook are registered as technology companies, but they serve the advertising industry. They have a gigantic comms team, and there's a reason they're well known in the market is because of their communications focus. And so, to your point, I don't see that in Pakistan at all. I think it comes back to the core that there's a lot of agencies in Pakistan where they're they're engaged in the futility of trying to keep up with the Jonases, with keeping up with everyone. And there's not enough leapfrogging. There's maybe five examples at the top of my head of media agencies and creative agencies in Pakistan that are leapfrogging with their investments. Otherwise, everyone else is copying this. It's like that same mentality ke dhanda hai to kar lete hain. They don't think about let's do it in a different way. Let's try a different approach. Let's bring some new investment into it. Not everyone is a Rehan merchant, Sarwar Khan. Not everyone can do that. I understand that the resources are constrained, but the approach in Pakistan is very, very limited based on the core competencies and the core capabilities of the agencies themselves.
Sounds good. So let's just take a viewpoint. If, for example, and as Minam mentioned, right, we are in a learning phase. So,
Ji.
for example, if you work in an agency, or either you are a decision maker or you are just someone who happens to be in an agency, what do you think is the approach? So, what I see actually, and you are very famous. I rather say on Facebook with in a lot of forums. So I see that. I see that a lot of so easy way of doing PR, if I understand, especially in Pakistan for forums, and they think that you come up with a campaign, and then and I use the word you. If you make a campaign, you feel this is a brilliant campaign. And I don't know about the world, but at least you personally think that's an amazing campaign, and you wanted to send across and reach out to as many journalists as possible or people in forums and all that, and say that, listen, can you cover this? Is it like a using the word very crudely? In fact, I can use it. Is it a stupid approach of doing it?
या डिपेंड्स राइट आई मीन वही वाली बात होती है कि जब अपने क्लाइंट को एडवाइस करना होता है तो सेगमेंटेशन टारगेटिंग पोजीशनिंग की बात होती है एंड स्ट्रेटजी की बात होती है टैक्टिक्स की बात नहीं होती जब अपना पीआर करना होता है या प्रेस रिलीज भेज दो तो टैक्टिकल दे डोंट रियली थिंक दैट फार सो इफ यू हैव अ if you're an agency that has pushed out a campaign that you think is interesting and you want it to be pushed out to the press first ask yourself why what is the
Hmm.
objective behind this एक चीज होती थी ना आपको याद है
Yeah.
मुझे तो याद है फैसल शेख जब हमें एडवर्टाइजिंग सिखाते थे ज़ैबस में,
Yeah,
बताते थे
Hmm.
कि यार एड प्लेसमेंट, डॉन का एड प्लेसमेंट फ्रंट पेज पे इसलिए लग रहा है, नॉट बिकॉज़ टारगेट ऑडियंस इज रीडिंग द न्यूज़पेपर, क्योंकि सीईओ साहब को दिखाना है जब वो मॉर्निंग न्यूज़पेपर खुलेंगे कि
Hmm.
पहला का ऐड हमारा फ्रंट पेज पे, तो एक टिक बॉक्स होता है। तो
yeah,
इसलिए इसलिए व्हेन आई डील विद एजेंसीज एंड इवन दे ब्रिंग दिस अप विद मी कि वी लाइक आवर we like our campaign covered in Profit or Campaign Asia, whatever. I ask them, "Kyun? Is there a reason? Like, is there?
yeah,
Have you identified that your target customer is reading my publication? Have you identified that there's some stakeholder that you want to engage with?" So first we have to start with that. And then if let's say all the things are in place, all the pieces are in place, the best approach is to figure out again, my customer base is in Pakistan. What are the publications, trade publications that they're reading? And this
mm,
trade publication is a very important point because it's one of those things where जहाँ पर अगर मैं ट्विटर पे जा रहा हूँ या फेसबुक पे जा रहा हूँ and I'm a B2B customer, let's say, right? I'm a potential customer
Hmm.
mm,
of a IG Square, whatever. When I go on Twitter and Facebook, my mindset, something changes in my mind, and I'm only consuming content that's entertaining, and I'm there with the intent of being entertained. Like, and as soon as I log into LinkedIn, my something switches in my mind, and I'm in the mindset of learning and educating myself and all those other things. So, वहाँ पर if the ad shows up or content shows up, I'm more receptive to it as opposed to it showing up on a
yeah,
Facebook or a Twitter. So people have to ask these
yeah,
questions. के the publication that you're putting the ad on, मतलब if someone says कि ये मैंने campaign roll out किया है, and I'm going to send the press release to Mango Bars, yeah, that guy's going to Mango Bars to see the top 10 Mahira Khan shocking moments. He's not there to read about B2B marketing. You have to put that particular press release on Business Recorder, Aurora Magazine, Synergizer if
Hmm.
you can get a hold of Ahmed Kapadia, and then Profit, obviously, because of the B2B marketing coverage that we have. Ask those, मतलब वही
mm,
वाली बात है, media planning 101. I don't know why they apply this on their clients, but they don't sell it internally to themselves. And that's what I would say. Figure out those publications. हाँ, अब आपको press release लिखना है. If you cannot write a press release, which is very easy to do, Google में लिख लें press release template, आपको मिल जाएगा. आप बस control F से replace your name with other things and all that. Sell it basically to the press in like 5 lines. Say, hey,
Hmm.
my name is Ali Rez, and I'm with BBDO Pakistan. We ran this campaign about child marriages in Pakistan. We ran this campaign because a line about the inside. We went about this particular approach with hacking a runway show because of this particular insight, because eyeballs and everything. The woke media is going to be at that that fashion show, and the woke celebrities who like to align themselves with woke causes will also be there, so they'll also get on board with that. And so we did this, and its effectiveness fana thi. Ab if you cannot name the number of the effectiveness, for example, agar if my agency is making, I'm giving an example. If my agency is making $1 million a day and the industry average is $100 million a day, if I don't want to use the number a million, I can say I make 1% of the industry average. You give some
Hmm.
data point to the journalist, they'll look at it as a genuine piece of information as opposed to something in the fluff category. Up to
yeah,
your point, आपने कहा जो ad बना रहा है या जो CEO who's behind the ad or whatever, उनको लगता है हमने बहुत बड़ी चीज कर ली है. How to step out of that box, अब वो culture पे depend करता है. If you work for someone like Sarwar or Rehan Merchant or from what I've been told, and Naveed Asghar, they apparently have the ability to step out of their range की masjid and say कि दूर से बता दो कि is this good or not? Objectively speaking, is this good or not? उसके basis पे let's send it out to the press. अगर it's bad and आपको फिर भी भेजना है, reframe करें उसको. And then
Hmm.
again,
mm,
I'm one person, but you can speak to any number of public relations professionals in Pakistan, Adika Nazir at Digits or Asma Rao at Prism. You can speak to any number of them and
Hmm.
get an idea from them of how would we position this with the press, and it depends on B2B and B2C press. And then how would we, if it's bad, how do we reframe it? Okay, we say,
yeah.
okay, although it's bad, like it was so bad, we did it on purpose, ताकि लोग याद रहे. That's an example, but that's not an advisable approach because वो Indian press उसको उठा देगी and they'll say, okay, this is Pakistan's best source. So it all depends, and there's ways of going about it,
अच्छा,
and you actually absolutely have to do that because आप ये सोचें, if time
Hmm.
is money and you're an
yeah,
agency and you have to go to every single time you meet a new client,
Hmm.
every single time you meet a new client, you have to explain from scratch आप कौन है, why do you matter, आप क्या करते हैं. But Ogilvy,
yeah,
for example, Asad Naqvi doesn't do that. When he meets clients, whether they're qualified leads or he's proactively meeting them, they know at the top of
Hmm.
their head what Ogilvy is. They know it's a creative agency, it's an integrated marketing agency. लेकिन इतने
अच्छा
सारी
एक
agencies
सवाल
ही
है.
मेरे साथ हुआ था, हम
अच्छा
pitch
एक
करने
सवाल
जाते
है.
थे, वही चीज हमें फिर से बताने from scratch. So when you
अच्छा,
do PR and
I've
marketing,
I've
you have that
I've
brand awareness.
I have two questions.
जी,
Sorry to cut you short,
जी,
right? First one, and keep it like concise. I think you spoke about it, but
जी.
Pakistan, mein, why aren't agencies doing that? So, what could be that one, two things that you think that either it doesn't cross their heads, they don't think is the right thing to do in Pakistan, whatever it is. Keep it short. The other one I want to talk is, right, you said, for example, if you're an Ogilvy or if you're a Group M or if you're a Starcom, people know about you. So you don't have to, start from scratch telling people who you are, what work you've done. But even for bigger agencies, I'm sure there's still a need to do PR, right? So you still need to talk about yourself on an ongoing basis. और उस पे
जी
आपने बात की थी, there is an existing resources in many agencies जिनका core काम ही होता है to create positive word of mouth about the agency, right? So one was the short part, why is it happening in Pakistan, and second, the bigger ones, how do they go about it? They really do something from scratch. But do you have any example in mind? I have one, I'll tell you later, that I think they're doing a brilliant job. But you tell me if you have anyone in mind also.
I have one as well. I want to.
Yeah, to the question of why don't they do it, I would have to base my answer off my experience with branding in Asia, where we had just that every publication that you know of in the world has a content lab inside. Like New York Times
Mm-hmm,
has T
mm-hmm,
Brand Studio and all those.
Mm,
So in a in-house content studio tha, jiska actual maqsad tha to work with I'm giving an example. S4 Capital would reach out and say, we have this case study, we'd like to publish it on your site in a very premium piece of ad inventory, and so work with us to come up with the case study, to write it, and then we'll put it up together. That was actually the point of that lab, that studio. 75% of the work was
yeah.
actually helping agencies write their word entries. उनको लिखना नहीं आता. So writing their word entries, framing it properly, putting the right images in there, because we understand, for example, I'm on the jury of Epic Awards. I've been on the jury since 2018. So I know what I want to see in an award entry and what I know it'll get approved. But again, conflict of interest if I'm working on the same entry. Like in keeping that in mind, keeping in mind what the jury wants and what they don't want, keeping those things in mind, we were able to craft those things. A lot of that business came from Pakistan, where big organizations जहाँ पे लम्स IBA के graduates बैठे हुए हैं, and they're like, can you write this award entry for us because we don't know what to do. So they don't know how to write an award entry, which, as you know, is a very basic piece of B2B content. तो कोई प्रेस रिलीज लिखेंगे तो इतनी आसान चीज है award entry लिखना. It's basically the same document that you've sent your client as a post campaign analysis in terms of its effectiveness. उसको आप थोड़ा water down करना होता है. They can't even do that. So I would say the first reason is they don't have that capability in-house to write B2B content, to create that kind of
Mm-hmm,
information. They don't know the right approach towards PR. I mean, you will see just इस session के जो questions भी आए थे, लोग ने कहा what is PR and what do people think PR is. पाकिस्तान में जो
mm,
PR mindset is very tactical. It's not strategic. So because of that misconception of what PR is and how to go about it, people have no idea where to even start. So credit to them कि उनको इतना अक्ल है कि हमें पता ही नहीं हम क्या करेंगे, so they won't even do it, as opposed to trying it and failing remarkably. So that's the first part. The second part, I think your question, if I'm not mistaken, was
yeah.
what are the Asia Pacific examples of public relations within agency context, if I'm not mistaken, Manal?
mm.
Yeah, any example
Good
that you can
example.
find that you think is doing a brilliant job in terms of how they are portraying themselves to the clients or
I think
B2B
S4
or
Capital has
consumers
done a
or.
really good job. Martin Sorrell's S4 Capital has done a very good job because their positioning that they say to their clients, to their investors, and even to ordinary constituents, even on the press, is very very consistent. It's the same message over again, which is faster, better, cheaper. That's it. And cheaper doesn't necessarily mean on price. It can also mean in terms of the time savings, and that's something that he
Mm,
rephrases over and over again. So they keep that one messaging consistent. It shows up in all of their presentations, even in their investor reports. I know a couple of the shareholders, so I know it comes up in their SEC 10K reports. The B2B marketing that they do is very thought leader centric. But they try to do is they break away from what Google and Facebook are pushing out. So as anyone knows, who's part of a Google and Facebook certified or a partner agency, Google and Facebook will send you documents from time to time and say, this is the right framework for segmentation or positioning or targeting. Push this out as much as you can. S4 Capital goes against that. So in that way, they have a decluttered approach towards how they approach marketing science with their clients. And then obviously they're part of award
Mm,
shows. They're part of they make sure that they are on the jury of specific awards that are around effectiveness, not necessarily around creativity. They're very effectiveness driven. They've positioned a lot of their technology investments around first party data because they know that 2023 तक कोई कुछ नहीं करेगा. मुझे अभी तक याद है कैंपेन पे जब थे GDPR में 2 हफ्ते रह गए थे, उस वक्त people started getting their shit together. Before that, then they had a 3.5 year heads up. They didn't do anything. So
mm,
I actually like Aspera Capital's approach because they have not only done everything that I just mentioned right now, but the
mm,
main thing that they've done, I think every single Pakistani agency should keep in mind is they've not said कि Martin Sorrell is the CEO, तो उसी का नाम सामने रखेंगे and he's the spokesperson. If anyone else is a subject matter expert, they kept that person in front as well. A junior
mm,
programmatic buyer has also been sent to various events. I mean, talk about pre-COVID, but she
Yeah.
would be sent. A junior planner would be sent. A junior creative would be sent. That tells you what? Because that tells you that bande mein itni reassurance hai by his own self worth that he can send other people out, and it's also doing their marketing. Because at the end of the day,
Mm,
if a person going from one agency to the other, it doesn't matter who that person is. Sorry, it doesn't matter what the agency is. The person matters more. Sarwar Khan's
mm,
agency is beating the crap out of all the agencies in Lahore right now just because of his name. His agency could have been called Thanos is right, and it still would do as well as it's doing because it's Sarwar Khan at the end of the
yeah.
day. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter okay, what agency you came from. So when you know that
Yeah.
people is the reason people are buying is the people themselves, then
Mm,
you have to craft this message that everyone in your company is a thought leader, not just the CEO. क्योंकि यही thinking होती है ना Steve Jobs मर गया अब क्या करें? No, there's another person that came up, and
mm,
now
Yeah.
if you look at Apple's B2B strategy today, Tim Cook and five other executives are constantly being pushed. ताकि एक assurance हो if Tim Cook dies, there's people take over. Investor में confidence हो. So we don't
I mean,
have that in Pakistan. We're like, I am
that's a good
DBK.
point.
I'm the owner of a company that's name that is based off a city in New York somewhere. I'm DBK, and I'm going to push my name out every single place. Every time there's a message, and you know that person doesn't know cock about programmatic buying. Like in statement, unke taraf se aa raha hai, as an example.
No,
So
I
these are a couple
and
of things I like about
that's
this one.
very
Yes,
interesting
yes.
point of view. But I think एक और interesting point ये कि उसी का जो counter है something that Publicis Group is doing. So their CEO
जी, जी,
creates some kick-ass funny content on a yearly basis, right? So they whenever they go
जी.
to Cannes or
हाँ, हाँ,
whenever
हाँ,
they have
Morris
they
does a
हाँ,
do
great
some
job. Yeah.
interesting shit, right? So I think that's
yeah,
also another approach completely that's just giving
Mm,
you a very softer feel to the overall organization, and that they do take their business seriously, but they are an amazing organization to be part of. I think
no,
similarly
that's
what
a,
Google did, right? When
that's
Google
beautiful.
creates movies about Google, the reason why we love it or people want to work there is because they've showed that environment and the working culture to everyone, right? So I think there are different approaches, and all depends on what makes sense. But I agree with you. It should not always be the CEO that's the face. It should not always be who's leading it. कि बस वही है.
जी,
It
जी,
should be actually believing in your people and giving the younger people a chance to be in front of everyone, saying
absolutely,
that I'm
I
part
mean,
of this
that's
space. I love it.
from an
absolutely.
agency perspective, I agree. But you just mentioned a name, Ali Rez, right? To be fair, huge respect for his work. Definitely see. But to be fair, if you ask me, I actually feel him. And this is a question I just wanted to understand from you because definitely from an agency perspective, completely agree with you that human capital is your main capital, right? Definitely, there is nothing else agencies usually sell. But what is the right balance? Because, for example, I see sometimes I'm talking about creative agencies more. Creative agencies usually have your ECDs as they are more brands as compared to the agency itself. Definitely, when ECDs move, clients moves, and all that stuff. What is the right balance? Because you rightly mentioned, especially in from a Pakistan perspective, I just put a comment there. I don't know majority of the people who are really a brand themselves on LinkedIn. Like Ali Rez is one example. He's definitely not in Pakistan anymore. He's doing a great job. Uh, you don't see people from all the big agencies you're talking about controlling 40-30% of the market and all that. I don't know. I honestly speaking don't even see one LinkedIn post from those big boys and girls on LinkedIn, kind of a B2B or a point of view, not even writing
Hmm,
something on their own, but have even
hmm,
liking an article. I don't
hmm,
even see that. So, what do you think that what's going on? Like, is it like agencies? Because agencies, of course, have one, but as a human, you should have an agenda as well, right? You're working with a certain group in a certain position. Uh,
hmm.
how one person can make themselves as a brand, and definitely it helps the agency as well.
जी. To your point, actually, I recently came across a last year's issue of Synergizer.
Hmm.
Ahmed Kapadia sent it to me, and usme quite a few big name CEOs have been mentioned as authors, including Rehan Merchant. Now, I don't know what's ghost written or what's not, but that's there. Aurora पे कभी कभार कोई चीजें आ जाती हैं, either in the form of an interview or an op-ed submitted. Why don't they do it? Yeah, it could be one of those things where जिस तरह हम जब एक creative ad देखते हैं, like anything by Ali or anyone else, and then someone says, "Okay, do you like it?" Your first answer is, "Yeah, I'm not the target audience." Second, and
Hmm.
now if we take that away, then you can objectively say, from a creative standpoint, I didn't like it or I did like it. तो
Hmm.
इसमें भी ये है कि हो सकता है कि the buyer decision journey in Pakistan for advertising agencies is completely different than the entire Asia Pacific region that focuses on B2B marketing. जिसमें
No,
खाली
but
रिलेशनशिप
you've seen, I
मीटिंग की
agree.
बात
You've seen
जी
CEOs. I have seen that. I have seen
जी
literally all the names that you're mentioning, right?
जी
I've seen their op-eds and some small little pieces that perhaps Aurora sends across them a questionnaire, they answer it, and then you saw top
जी
CEOs think about this after COVID. But I'm not talking about CEOs. I'm talking about the second tier leadership. Where is
hmm.
that?
Second tier leadership within the agencies.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it. If you come across it, let me know. But I don't see any
No,
of
I
their own
haven't.
marketing. I think it's just yeah. I don't know how they market themselves. वही वाली बात होती है ना. At the end, if they're somehow doing business as they are, without doing what we conventionally look at as B2B marketing, whether it's paid, owned, or shared, they are somehow still winning business. लेकिन मसला क्या आता है कि they realize the absence of their public relations efforts when it's a little too late. So there was this agency I don't want to name in Pakistan in 2018. They lost the Telenor media account, and they learned that they
We don't
learned
need
the
to
hard
name
way
it.
that
We
the
know.
decision maker. हाँ
We
मतलब कोई
know.
पीबीए के वेबसाइट पे जाके देख ले मैं किसकी बात कर रहा हूँ but they learned the hard way उनने basically at the end of the bidding process they learned that as big as they are in Pakistan they were about to lose the bid. Why? Because the decision maker for that particular media review was based in Singapore and he or she had never heard of their agency in their lives. That was not the only reason, but it does help quite a bit if someone has heard of your
Yeah.
name.
Yep.
And so, because you didn't, I'm not saying go with my publication. I said I've given people many tools that they can engage with the Drum Marketing Interactive. आप तो जानते हैं Marketing Interactive actually क्या करता है. लेकिन the Drum Marketing Interactive campaign Asia, you can engage with these people very easily, and they have a क्या कहते हैं white space of content around Pakistan. Since I
Yep.
left campaign, they have not covered Pakistan once, and there's a reason for that. So you can easily reach out to them and pitch your story accordingly and get your top of mind recall. आप वो करें तो you'll win business. And again that's why bring it back down to they don't have maybe they don't know how to go about it in the first place. No one has gone to them and said, here's how you do B2B marketing for your agency, and here's how it's been done in these other countries. जैसे हम कितना पाकिस्तान और इंडिया compare करते हैं, इतनी सारी agencies है इंडिया में that do their own B2B marketing and PR through the trade press, but we don't do it in Pakistan. Again, it could be I don't know, right? It could be that they have never tried it before. They don't know whether it works. They have never had someone come to them and show them the proof of the pudding. Okay, here's an approach you could try to make it happen. And then there's all this effort involved in which the effort of having to actually have an original thought. That effort is something that they're not willing to put in for most people. They're like, hey, what we're to say this thing that's somewhat against the narrative of Google and Facebook. Now forget it. Our rebates are much more important, so let's not do that. So there are many reasons why the agency heads and their second tier commands don't want to engage. I think just an extra effort. वो भी कहते हैं ना कि ये मेरा काम ही नहीं है, मैं क्यों करूँ? They don't think beyond that कि आप जब इस कंपनी को छोड़ेंगे फिर कोई आपको गूगल कर रहेगा and if unfortunately your name is Ahmed Khan, the most generic name on the planet, then when people Google you, what are they going to find, right? I've got a very unique name. I've got a Pathan word name and inside my name an Urdu speaking name, so I don't think anyone else would be named this. When people Google me,
Hmm.
they see something. When people Google you, they see something. So people don't work on their own personal branding. It hits them down the line.
No,
Again, I
that's a
don't know,
very good
right?
point.
I've not asked this question in depth in the way you're asking me. Why don't they do it? I think if you have to be very empathetic about it, that they have no idea how to go about it in the first place. And even if they've tried it in the
Mm.
past, they do it in a very pathetic tactical manner, and then they
Hmm.
fail, and then they're wondering, okay, why did it fail? ये नहीं देखते कि
I,
हमने tactically किया था. But they
No, no,
think
but
the whole
I
sector failed.
agree with you. I'll give a twist to it. For example, in if you are in second tier leadership, right, in assuming
जी
in a certain market, right, sometimes
जी
you know that the businesses don't come, people don't Google you, they know you.
जी
Like
जी
they definitely they know who you are, what you do, and you're very comfortable in a certain ecosystem doing it.
yeah
But
yeah
things become a lot more difficult when you have a global viewpoint. You know that
जी
you are right now working in this market, perhaps 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, you're working with be any different market or any different region for that matter. There, people, it does make sense because they don't even know who you are. Businesses don't come very easily. So, do you think
जी
it's also because people have a very parochial view of their careers? कि यार इस मार्केट में तो हम चीते हैं ना इन सिंपल टर्म्स मुझे क्या लिखने की जरूरत है एवरीवन नोज मी
yeah, you're right. Actually, that is obviously a factor, right? The I thought you were going to bring up the immigration point. A lot of the
नो
times
आई
the decision
वोंट
making is A lot of the time, the decision making is so focused on मुझे Canada जाना है 5 साल के अंदर. Why should I focus on anything long term? But to
Hmm.
your point with agency owners, why they're fixated on Pakistan, it's a market they can get away with things, whether it's by this legacy ki baat. Sarwar Khan set up his agency less than a year ago, and he's basically taken almost all the Group M lower clients, just based off his existing relationship with those clients.
Hmm.
So yes, relationships matters quite a bit, and if you're getting away with it, winning business via relationships and nothing else. I mean, winning in Pakistan's market, winning business based on relationships as opposed to winning it on the lowest possible bid of your media is better, right? Comparatively, at least. So yeah, that's definitely a big part of that
Hmm.
user that buyer journey. And I don't know how to solve it if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm just asking because I just wanted to let people think. It's not a question to answer. Okay,
Huh.
the questions we have is basically let's just go to the questions. And I think you've seen a lot of engagement on the posts. So first, I'll take Ariba's question, and you have those 4 questions from Ariba, right? I'll just read the questions, and then you can go like as concise as possible for the answers. So Ariba has asked a question number 1: what are the challenges in covering the advertising and media industry in Pakistan? But as concise, I know you can write a book on it, but just keep it concise.
The challenges is that in a way, depending on who you ask, I have a monopoly. Let's not beat around the bush. Aurora writes op-eds, publishes op-eds. Synergizer comes out once in a year. I'm writing the news packages. Ka review ho raha hai, who won the account? The things I'm writing about the frequency is much higher. If we talk about circulation, so yes, that in a way it's a monopoly. It's not. It sounds great on paper. It's actually horrible in the long run because every time I reach out to people, if they're not, I would say, civilized, like Naveed, Rehan, and Sarwar are civilized. If they're not civilized, they become very defensive. "Kya aap ye kyun पूछ रहे हैं? We will sue you to the ground
Hmm.
if you ask this question. If you write about this particular thing."
Mm-hmm.
Then obviously you'll have all these situations जिसमें media agencies are getting in touch with reporters and saying इस article को delete करो because it goes against our client. Don't like आप media agency है या PR agency है? आप ये क्या कर रहे हैं कि आप कह रहे हैं कि article delete करो because आपके client को गुस्सा आ रहा है. So obviously इस तरह की stupid चीजें. I never experienced this once in Singapore, not once in the UAE of all places, not once in the UAE, not once in Singapore for writing things that would upset a person's client. लेकिन ये पाकिस्तान is the वाहिद country जहाँ पर एक तरफ कह रहे हैं talking about rigging, दूसरी तरफ rigging things themselves. So that's one of the big challenges. Again, you want me to be concise. That is the main challenge, and the second main challenge is lack of professionalism. People go time management का कुछ पता नहीं है. We are sitting right now on 22nd April. I sent out an email to someone tomorrow morning saying कि 30th April को आपको जवाब देना by 9 a.m. जवाब आ रहा है आपको summer में. मैं कह रहा हूँ यार, it was a campaign. The question was focused on April. आप मुझे जुलाई में जवाब दे रहे हैं. कोई time management का मतलब like Rashida Valika, if I'm not mistaken, taught the time management course at Javed. The first bloody
Yeah.
semester में course सिखाते हैं how to manage your time. They couldn't do that. Sorry, something Sabika, I forgot her name. But yeah, this is the first course taught in most universities, and people don't have that. So if you fix this, a lot of things will change in Pakistan. उसका butterfly effect काफी strong होगा. ये बस
Done
दूर
it.
कर दें, please.
Best. Okay, then second question. In a world where niche audiences are valuable, why is only one reporter? This is like a targeted question to you, Babar. One reporter at one publication serving 500,000 marketers in Pakistan. Is this a question or is like a glorifying you?
It's like someone should have WhatsApped you this question either way. They should
हाँ.
have WhatsApped you
Babar, you
separately
you
for it
always
to
talk
ask
about
it. But anyways,
monopoly in media agencies. You have a monopoly as well.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a monopoly from a reporting standpoint, right? But it's not a monopoly. It's not a nice monopoly. एक monopoly होती है where you're Amazon and you're a $1 trillion company. और दूसरा होता है आप monopoly हो और आपके घर पे every week एक death threat आ रहा है. So why am I the only one? I think there's I checked with Facebook's audience insights and with LinkedIn's analytics as well. It is this number more or less about 500,000 people across entire Pakistan. I even looked at lookalike audiences. So about 500,000 people across Pakistan identify as marketers. Now, the caveat on this is that there's people in sales who also call themselves marketers and vice versa, because people don't have a distinction. Sales and marketing manager
Hmm.
कितने positions आपने देखे होंगे. So that's keeping in mind. Let's assume it's 250,000. Niche audience, and why don't any other publications go after it? वही वाली बात है. The publications in Pakistan, the broadcasters in Pakistan, are getting calls from media agencies saying कि ये वाला news आप हटा दें because it makes my client unhappy, right? So now imagine you're writing about the media agency itself. How pathetic is that phone call? The media agency is calling you and saying, "Hey, you wrote this thing about us. We are not ready to release this news take it down. Otherwise, आपको पूरा मतलब ये तो होता है ना कि the client gets in touch with you and says कि फला CPG is upset because of this piece of news. हम आपका सारा CPG business खींच लेंगे if you don't remove this piece of news.
Yeah.
अब आप media agency के ऊपर लिख रहे हैं. The business models in Pakistan's broadcasters and publications and all that does not support subscriptions, and therefore it's ad dependent, and therefore it's media agency dependent. So they cannot do that from a logical standpoint. Profit is able to do it because we have a subscription model and we have a alternative business models around analysis and research and all that. As an example, people reach out every now and then from abroad and they'll say, okay, we want to enter the Pakistan market. How do you recommend we go about it? And I give them three names and then they move forward with those three names, as opposed to reaching out to 100 agencies and finding out that 97 were a gigantic waste of time. So, Ustara said we have this sort of matchmaking service, B2B matchmaking service, to be help people with the reseller deals and agencies and all that. Every now and then, a brand marketer will reach out to me personally on LinkedIn. They'll drop an email and say, okay, we're doing a creative review, we're doing a digital review, a media review, and we would like to have new faces, fresh faces, non-network agencies. Can you name any agencies जहाँ पे performance-driven campaigns होती है, effectively campaigns होती है? And I give them five names. And then वहां से I get a fee in terms of okay, you gave us a referral that was all
Mm.
good names, it wasn't pathetic names. And those agencies are not those agencies don't even know that I'm giving their names. उनको तो बाद में पता चलता है यार ये तुम्हारा referral था, आपने बताया नहीं यार. What can we do to make sure you're always the referral? मैं कहा ये नहीं होगा, लेकिन you have to. I have alternative ways of monetizing my time and my business intelligence. So that's
Mm.
another reason, right? Pakistan niche audiences are very impactful. If you take the 250,000 marketers in Pakistan can control about $2 billion of media spend, but no one's focusing on them. Okay, I mean, the Auroras and the Synergizers don't want to do it. That's up to them. But I think it's a business model issue.
No, that's a good one. In fact, I had never read about it. It's a brilliant one. For the first time, I'm hearing it. Okay, then I'll come out of the rebus questions. I'll think, Minam, do you have any questions? Otherwise, I'll shoot one question which I have burning
No,
question.
you should.
If
You go ahead.
I am
You
an
you you put
advertiser, right?
whatever to
I am
your
an
mind.
advertiser, right? One of the things that away, and I actually told Minam, and we were having a discussion, and someone told me, and I like that part. He said that I don't want to. I'll just give the context first, and then I'll ask the question. He said that I don't want to pay for an CD. I want to pay for a creative director. I don't want to pay for an executive creative director, because executive creative director's job is basically to make the agency famous by winning medals. Creative director is the one who want to make me famous because my brand,
Yeah.
they will work on it. And so what do you think, like, do you think that metals, you all know metals are very important for an agency and it's kind of a PR tool, but how do you think, how can we make it win-win? Because there are clients who say यार इतना ज़्यादा focus agencies का सिर्फ metals के ऊपर होता है. And me and Minam worked on a client, I won't name it, and Minam, we got a brief, and I just want to tell the story. This is an amazing story. First time ever, I always thought that agencies focus very much on winning awards. And, sometimes you start thinking of a campaign and you think about how to win a medal with it. The client actually sent across a brief, and the brief has an appendix section to it. And the appendix basically mentions the categories of FEs where we can actually place this campaign. Like, you were talking to me about a brief to solve a business problem. Think about that first. If it becomes an entry that with the brief, I never seen actually an entry coming with it. So what is the fine balance? What do you think that the fine balance would be?
Yeah, this is a perfect question to answer what I was to basically lap on what I was basically saying before. If you speak to anyone who's a trained, not self-taught, I hate this word, the self-taught thing. If someone is a trained publicist, trained in public affairs and public relations, and you go to them with literally any piece of news, they can spin it. They can spin
Mm,
it in your
Yeah.
favor. They can spin it against you. They can do anything they want with it. And so, in this particular case, it would be better if the client, if they knew the power of public relations, the client would give you the brief without that metals-oriented thing. Tell their own PR department, okay, I would love to win an FE or a Campaign Asia award or whatever the word is. And can you reframe how we have done this to make it sound smarter, to make it sound more intelligent, to make the strategy
Yeah.
sound deeper than it actually
mm,
is, without necessarily towing the line of lying, right? So they don't need to engage you on that. They can mention that as an add-on. There are a
mm,
couple of situations like this that I've seen in Pakistan. आप तो award की बात कर रहे हैं. मैंने तो campaigns देखा है of a certain cigarette business that did a Coke Studio replica where they said they wrote in their brief, the creative agency, okay, we would love Ad Mad Do to say something very nice about this, which he didn't do. Like, and they wrote that in the brief. या तो ये जो यार इसका नाम भूल रहा हूँ, अम्ब्रेली स्टील्स का जो ब्रीफ था उसमें एक्चुअली लिखा हुआ है कि एड माय डूड शुड से समथिंग नाइस अबाउट दिस, एंड नाउ आई डोंट नो इफ इट्स पेड और नॉट, लेकिन इस हद तक भी लोग जाते हैं। कभी मेरा मेरा नाम इस तरह की चीज में नहीं आया, लेकिन आई एम टोल्ड कि दिस इज अ लेजिट थिंग ऑन द अम्ब्रेली साइड एंड द अदर साइड एज
Umbrella
वेल।
Steel, by the way,
तो
just to quote, Umbrella Steel is actually quite a brand actually on LinkedIn.
जी 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 हाँ, उनकी बीडीबी मार्केटिंग काफी स्ट्रांग है। इट्स लेड बाय गाय नेम सुहेब हसन, डेफिनेटली हैव हिम ऑन,
Hmm.
एंड ही बिलीव वो अपनी बीडीबी मार्केटिंग बहुत अच्छा करता है फ्रॉम अ पर्सनल
Hmm.
ब्रांडिंग स्टैंड पॉइंट, ही अंडरस्टैंड्स हाउ दिस वर्क्स। अगेन मतलब इफ यू वांट टू बॉयल इट डाउन, हर चीज को बॉयल डाउन अगर करते हैं ना कि बंदा इस तरह से क्यों है, इट्स अ टॉक्सिक एनवायरनमेंट, या उसके घर में मसला है। As an example, right? If you talk about business leadership and all that, but with Suhaib Hassan as an example, or Amelie Steele, the people who are in charge of that B2B marketing LinkedIn driven strategy are digital natives. They're not digital immigrants. A digital immigrant will not understand the impact of doing what they're doing right now, but it's working
Hmm.
out for them brilliantly. Engro ka ek department, they're also doing the same thing on LinkedIn. I forgot what it's called, but it's their solar energy division that
India
they have
energy
it.
one.
Bopak naam hai, jo bhi naam hai. Ji, ji. So they're also very strong on their B2B marketing. Again, it's a digital immigrant, digital native wali baat hai. That's my take on it. If you have any other additional point of view on this, I'd be happy to take that on.
No, I think I agree with you. I think it depends on the people at the end of the day. It's not like
Yeah.
agencies, it's people who are working there and how serious they are. We have certain comments here. I don't want you to comment on it. You can say that I keep my comments with you. I'll just put it on the screen. So I think it's easier. So Rizwan Merchant, your very good friend, is actually commenting on our second tier teams are not given exposure because Pakistan doesn't have multinational agencies. I can give my point of view. I don't think so. That's the case. Because to be fair, I worked with networked agencies as well. I worked with, which you call in Pakistan, like state-based agencies as well. To be fair, no one actually told me to, hey, listen, you can't post anything on LinkedIn. If you have a point of view, you can. Right? As in, no one tells you not to do it to give a point of view. I think a lot of people don't even give their effort. What do you think, Minam? You worked in a network agency all your time.
We did. I mean, my whole experience has been, I don't kind of 100% agree. Maybe his point is maybe in terms of there are not enough number of agencies, but I think that's not true. I think in case of the where we both are working also in our competitors and all, even where Server was before this, right? They are network agencies, and there's a lot of feedback and a lot of global initiatives that come as part of that. I think the only thing different then is that they are not, as you mentioned, Babar, earlier, right? Because it's a Pakistani mindset, sometimes it's more about the CEO and probably the business lead than someone like a programmatic lead who's much more brilliant than them to have a conversation. So I think mindset shift is something more important than saying that there are not
No,
enough
I mean,
agencies.
first I'd like to say that Rizan Merchant is the reason I'm quite educated in this area. He's someone that I reached out
Hmm.
to at Campaign Asia time and said,
Hmm.
"Okay, yeah, not to sound like a complete idiot, लेकिन मुझे फना concept समझ नहीं आता, आप मुझे समझा दे." And instead of
Hmm.
doing the typical Pakistani thing of berating me for 5 minutes and then explaining it, he just explained it. So he's that kind of person. So I really admire everything he's done for me. But to his point, I think he's just talking about the fact that Group M and Maxis and all these others, those are the only internationally owned businesses. Everyone else is an affiliate agency. So and
Hmm.
as a result of that, जब आप affiliate
Yeah.
agency होते हैं, and this is based on my experience. If I'm covering something about Starcom Pakistan as an example, दे रहा हूँ, and I reached out to
Hmm.
the publicist communications lead in Singapore. Okay, I need a statement. But majority of the time, the response I get is, okay, this isn't under my remit. Not in the Malaysia office, not in the any office. They don't think that we have to do any of the B2B marketing, the PR for the affiliate agency. Not that they've told
Yeah.
the affiliate agency कि आप नहीं कर सकते हैं, लेकिन ये कह रहे हैं कि you will not get that support from the region. This is apparently again what I'm told. They can correct me if I'm wrong. So ये तो पहली बात है. They're not
Hmm.
multinational agencies because they're all affiliates. Again, then it comes back to the point that is the affiliate-led media agency led by a digital immigrant or digital native? अब debate कर ले digital immigrant native, is this a demographic or is this a psychographic?
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a choice,
Hmm.
right? Someone like Rizwan is psychographically a digital native. So
Yeah.
that matters quite a bit. And then yeah, this it comes back to the point that because they're not doing PR at all, जब मौका मिलता है PR करने के, CEO कह रहा है मेरी मेरी शक्ल आनी चाहिए and make sure it's big. मेरा logo यहाँ, मेरा ये and all that. That they don't want
Hmm.
to put any junior person because वो भाग जाएगा, वो भाग जाएगी, and then they'll take the fame with them. No, it doesn't work that way. You
Hmm.
by positioning your second tier teams or your junior teams in front, you're actually sending the message that the CEO is so genius that this opinion that you're getting from a junior employee, I'll put it this way. if the opinion is up here and the junior employee is here and people like it, junior bande ne itna acha opinion diya, imagine what the senior person gives. People think like that.
Yeah,
Actually, they think like
absolutely,
that. That's what
absolutely.
the
That's a
market.
that's
That's what
a
the
good
S4
point. Yeah.
Capital's approach is. S4 Capital pay, the only areas where Martin Sorrell is commenting is high level strategy, brand strategy, and he talks about strategy from a corporate strategy perspective. Whenever he's talking, whenever he's featured, it's a discussion around financial strategy, corporate strategy. Hey, look at why is an advertising agency guy talking about corporate and financial strategy? Oh, because brand strategy also is corporate strategy. Brand and strategy is the same thing. That's how he's
Hmm.
reinforcing it. Lekin jab koi tactical baat hoti hai,
Yeah,
department siloed koi baat hoti hai, he sends his HODs where he puts his junior people in front. Idly, diversity and
yeah,
all that, DI initiatives with it, they make sure those things are in check as well. We don't have that in
yeah,
Pakistan.
yeah.
There's a lot of, but in a country where the logo is big and everything, the CEO is like, "Meri shakal, make sure I'm in front." So that's why these things are not being done, unfortunately. Lekin I believe things will change. One of the criticisms I often get is, okay, why are only Group M and Z, matlab for every 100 stories that I've done, I would say
Hmm.
40 of them are about Group M and Z2C. And the reason is that when I reach out to Naveed or I reach out to Rehan for a comment, I get that comment in time. But the others are like, "Hey, क्यों
Mm.
पूछ रहे हो क्यों मत पूछो, don't write about this, हम तुम ये कर लेंगे वो कर लेंगे." So Rehan and Naveed are over indexed in my stories and somehow their businesses are doing really well and the others, no names, are not doing to do well, or they're missing from the action. So it's interrelated. If I'm wrong, if this approach is wrong, then Kareem, Facebook, Google, Tesla, all the gigantic unicorn companies that are worth more than the entire Pakistan combined, they should all
Yeah.
fire their PR departments. But there's a reason to have a PR and communications team to reinforce messages, to put messages out there,
Mm,
to reinstill the
mm.
idea or the belief or the hope in the specific business.
Yeah, that's a good
लेकिन नहीं
action
करेंगे
Yeah,
point.
तो
In fact, if I would be sitting in Pakistan, I would take it as an action point. Like, thinking about that. If, for example, I want to be like, for example, Rehan or Naveed, right? First thing is that you need to pick up the phone. I think you need to reply
you
people
have to be
they're asking for
accessible all the time. You have to be accessible
बिल्कुल
all
accessible.
the time for
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's important.
So
How do you?
Babar, sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Manam. I just
So
have very
Babar,
small question. I have. Do you think? How do you keep impartiality? Because it's very important, difficult, right? As a human, how do you do it? You can be as concise as possible.
Yeah, I would answer the question by saying, show me a situation where I've not been impartial, and I
That's
will
a smart
it's
answer.
not. It's not about.
happily
It's
challenge
not
the
about.
situation. जी?
It's not about that you are not. If even if
जी.
you are, how do you do it, right? So when and I think it's human nature. Even though you're not impartial, there's certain biases that just come, right? It's just human nature to focus towards people that are giving you more. So, for example, in case of Rizwan or in case of any other people that are actually responding to you, you're more
Yeah,
inclined towards pushing their content because they are responding
yeah,
to you, right? But do you
yeah,
still
yeah.
push for people who are not responding? How
जी,
do you
जी,
keep
I do.
yourself impartial for that? Yeah,
I
that's what I'm
do.
saying.
So
So how does one do that?
one of the things that I do, which my wife tells me I'm wasting my time, and other people say the same thing within their journalism spaces. If there's 10 people being quoted in my articles, I make sure I go out of my way and use up my free time. I make sure 6 of them are women. आप मेरी कोई भी article उठाते हैं where more than 5 people are
Hmm.
quoted, the majority are women. I do that on purpose. So if I tell a guy that today is Thursday and you have till next Friday, sorry, you have till Monday to respond to me, if I'm speaking to a woman who is who I know is a mother and has kids and other
Yeah,
responsibilities at home, I'll give them a bit more time. I give them two to three
that's
more
brilliant.
days. I do that
That's
on
brilliant.
purpose. It sometimes it backfires royally because they say कि हम Wednesday तक जवाब देंगे कुछ नहीं आता. But I know I've done my 100. I know I've done my 50%. And
Yeah.
if anyone has an issue, go talk to the other Pakistan advertising reporter. He doesn't exist. So or he or she doesn't exist. Okay. If you don't like the way I do things, go to the other person. Have fun with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that being said, yeah, I want to be very careful about how I say this. Yeah, I'm impartial in the sense you're right. That does happen quite a bit. Just may if I know Naveed and like there's a guy named Ghulam Jilani at Group M. He is like my go-to guy for programmatic because I know he'll give me the answer immediately. He's very well
Yeah.
learned. He's very well educated, and he has a good response time as well. So he is my
Yeah.
go-to person. In that way, maybe I'm not impartial enough. But that's because maybe the sensitivity of the deadline. I have to be that way. That being
Yeah.
said, there
Makes
are
sense.
other people that I reach out to. I actually make ensure I reach out to at least 3 people for a specific piece of content or comment because we do
Mm.
actually do need that diversity of opinion. And if I'm not being impartial, then there's an editor who stands in the way and says, go back and redo the story or add this particular piece of information because it's missing. So if I'm not being impartial for any reason, the editor jumps in, or my reporting team also jumps in to read my work before it goes out to the magazine, and that's how they push. Like, हाँ, ये definitely होता है from an expert commentary standpoint. I have my set number of people. If I want to write about digital PR, I'll talk to Adika Nazir, or I'll talk to Asma Rao at Prism. Programmatic. If I want to know about media audits, the one person I can think of is Rizwan Merchant. Anything to do with ad fraud goes to
Yeah.
Rizwan Merchant almost immediately. So इस तरह की चीजें मेरे set लोग हैं. लेकिन that being said, मतलब again, finding my email address is not hard. Email me, say you're subject matter expert, prove it to me, and I'll feature you. Simple. There was a guy named Hazma. Sorry, I'm saying his name wrong. Hamza Kazi, ek banda hai. He works for Multinet. He's their corporate affairs and legal head. He back and he said, "Okay, this is what I do. This is where I work. Here's the kind of work that I do. Whenever you have a story around this particular topic, and I do that. I reached out to him."
Brilliant. अच्छा मुझे अब थोड़ा सा interesting करते हैं, right? I think we're going closer to the end of the program, anyways. What is the funniest or weirdest incident you remember? You don't have to take names, but you can just quote some interesting part that we can all learn from to not do if you're at the agency side otherwise.
Sorry, the interesting things that have happened as a reporter for the agency world.
Yeah. Anything, any special request, any kind of weird request, any kind of commentary that you got. I mean, you don't have to take names. Don't have to say the agency name, but at least from a situation, if you can just give.
अच्छा 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 सही है सही है आपको याद है जब हम यूनिवर्सिटी we learned about a guy drowning
Mm-hmm.
on a
Yeah,
show
of course.
like Fear Factor.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't remember. You either don't remember your that's your but your voice just broke for a second. I'm just pausing.
I
Okay,
think your
cool.
voice is.
There's
Yeah.
a very famous CPG business. There's a very famous CPG business here in Pakistan that man, I don't know how to say it without naming the company, but there's a very famous CPG business here in Pakistan that came out with an app that was around ordering snacks, and they have ice cream brands under their portfolio. They got PepsiCo to put its Lay's products and other things as well. Anything with an unnecessary amount of sodium and salt and sugar in it was considered a snack, and they're put on that app. And for all intents and purposes, that app never said, the app name by so and so CPG company or FMCG company. And I did a bit of digging, and anyone who looks at the branding and the brand identity of that particular product can sort of figure out how I got to the point where I reached that, and I said that this is, I think, by the CPG business. Long story short, I wrote the story about their project. Their media agency reached out and they said, "Okay, not to me, but they reached out to the editor and the executive editor. Okay, please kill this story because and we're willing. To their credit, they said we're willing to pay you like 5 million rupees for the story to go away, but we just don't want it to show up at all in your publication." But he said no,
Yeah.
and then we move forward with it anyway. Like in this case, if requests out there, and but the funny thing about that was I reached out to them like the day it was going out. I reached out to the CEO of that media agency, who may or may not have been named here. And I reached out to the someone on the board of that CPG company, and I happened to meet him even in Islamabad. And I was like, "Did you bother reading the article?" And they're like, "नहीं नहीं हमने headline देखा था." मैंने कहा, if you read the article, it was praising the crap out of your initiative. It was saying, "Okay, despite COVID, they went through this technology-oriented initiative." If you had read the article, you would see it was praising you. लेकिन बस आपके दिमाग में ये चीज बैठी हुई है कि नहीं, it wasn't in our planned PR rollout, and therefore he's against it. तो भाई पढ़ लो तो सही. Anyway, so that was funny to me because I was like, wow, you went to Lums, man. Like I was told my whole life I'm worth nothing because I didn't go to Lums. You went to Lums, you got an MBA from Lums, and this is how you talk seriously, like
This is
brain
how you
shattered
react.
in terms of perceptions of what it means to be worthy. You feel like I'm the
That's an
only here at
interesting
this
one.
point, right? That was hilarious.
That's interesting. I take calm together, right? So we wanna get closer, and I think just we had a very good conversation with you. So there's one thing I just want to end with, and I think the hope for this session obviously was to give some kind of thought nuggets to people who are not thinking about PR right now. Agency हो या individual हो LinkedIn पे, right? That's also very important. Yeah, कोई B2B business हो, right?
जी
Or any business for that matter. What are couple of do's and don'ts
जी
that you want to highlight, saying कि यार ये चीजें करो, ये चीजें ना करो, and then anything that you want to add on, and I think we can close the session on that.
sure. Um, this is not me saying it. So there's a guy named Roger Martin. He's a professor in the U.S. He writes these op-eds around strategy and differentiation. Um,
Yep.
and one of his recent op-eds that he put out was, I'm reading it exactly as it's written: the tragic futility of investing to catch up. So he mentions that there's two types of investments. The one type of investment is that let's do what everyone else is doing, and the other type is to leapfrog. So I would recommend
Yep.
people to think about doing the latter, because at least in that case you will stand out. You need distinctiveness. When you talk about branding and all that, you want to go for distinctive instead of the same 10 things over and over again.
Yep.
Run your B2B strategy, or run your interest to engage in a B2B PR campaign through a PR agency, and make sure it's 3-4 years in the long term, as opposed to a very short tactical approach. The B2B approach will only come from them from a strategic standpoint, and leave the tactics up to them, and do something that's very hard for your clients to do, and shut your mouth and let the PR agency do what they're doing. And if you're not bringing in a PR agency, hire someone who is an ex-journalist. This is very important. I'm not someone like me, because I've been in the agency side, so my bullshit detector is at a whole different level. But someone who is a pure journalist, bring them in so that they can do craft the strategy for you, because only they will know the
Yeah.
scenarios against people will react to. They will know how
Yeah.
something will be, how whether something will land or not in terms of the eyes of the reader or the
Yeah.
viewer
Yeah.
of the piece of
Yeah.
content. That being
Yeah.
said, इतने सारे situations हैं, और आप भी जानते हैं, हमारा पूरा बैच आई थिंक कनाडा गया है, तो if I'm not mistaken, हमारा batch and the two batches above it's are Canadian immigration. So what ends up happening is, for the people who are watching who are thinking about immigration, just I'm going to put it in the area of self interest, right? You apply to a country
Mm.
where you have no network, you get there somehow by hook or crook, you land there, and then 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 9 months go by, you can't find a job. Why? When they Google your name, what comes up? Zilch. Did you do any personal branding at all? Apne agar you had
Yeah.
indexed even one piece of content, original thinking in Aurora Dawn, that may have
Mm.
cropped up as well, but you have not done any of that. So फिर वहां जाके after like 9 months of not finding a job, फिर याद आता है कि I should have put out some thought leadership. I should have made a video at least of myself. क्योंकि क्या होता है with these
Yeah.
recruiters, at the end they're racist. They have never seen how you stand up and talk. They've seen your resume,
Yeah.
they've seen your
Yeah.
LinkedIn, but they have no idea आपका accent किस तरह से है. They're like ये Indian tata tata बोलता होगा. There's not a single video of you on the internet where you're talking eloquently. So they have no idea. So and then
Wait.
putting that video up at the last second is a
Just
waste of time.
let me clear that up. Indian or Pakistani, because
No,
we have
Indian,
some Indian
Pakistani,
friends
Nepali,
also.
and all that. I don't want to be too racist, लेकिन हाँ, that's absolutely true. But then
Yeah.
यार ये भी बात होती है कि there's like इस तरह के comment section में भी देख रहा हूँ, और other places पे भी काफी लोग they reach out, they like कि यार PR तो है, लेकिन हमारे इंडस्ट्री में फला इशू पीबीए कुछ नहीं कर रहा, पैमरा कुछ नहीं कर रहा, तो मैंने कहा कोalition बनाओ, come together, you know what 4As are, you know what ANA is in the US, come bring all the agencies together and lobby, use a public affairs strategy. अब पाकिस्तान में मसला ये है कि for every 1,000 agencies, there's a 4 agencies in Pakistan out of 1,000 that can do public affairs. I recently completed a master's for this exact region because niche hai in the entire world in public affairs. Get someone who's certified in this to do your lobbying on your behalf, to change laws, to put legislation in place, to pass bills, and or at least lobby to legislators. We need to change the rules of how things are done in Pakistan. Competition commission को involve करें, जिस तरह business is being won on discounts and all that. There needs to be a smarter way of going
Yeah.
about this, and then obviously lobby for education reform within the business schools, so that when a person is coming out of IB or LUMS with a marketing degree, this thing is drilled into their head that media is an asset, media is an investment, media is not a commodity. He's drilled into that person's head. Not everyone is lucky
Mm.
enough to get Shayan Ahmed and Ali Imran Maiman as clients. Not everyone's that lucky. But when you are coming across to these kind of people who think of media as a cost-cutting measure and not as an investment tied to sales or in revenue, then that's what you're going to get. So I would recommend the agencies, all the agencies, creative, digital, media, activation, what have you, get together, lobby to the government, get that education reform in place, lobby to the universities, and make sure that these people have this stuff drilled in. Because when I did courses with Mark Ritson or Scott Galloway, these things were drilled into our minds, that what is the association between PR communications and sales or commercial value.
Mm.
But we don't do that enough in Pakistan. And if they go to this root cause of this problem, अगर ये root cause पे जाएंगे, बहुत उसका ripple effect बहुत strong होगा. लेकिन ये जाते नहीं है, तो ये करें. अब public affairs तो कर लेंगे, PR नहीं कर सकते. Maybe that'll create an even playing field for everyone.
Mm. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Babar. I think thank you so much. It was amazing having you and having this conversation with you. It's really helpful. I think I learned quite a bit, and I think I agree with all of what you said. And I think you are trying your level best to bring Pakistan to a standard, and hopefully you'll get there. and hopefully your monopoly doesn't stay monopoly for long. I think that's good for the industry also. And best
नहीं
of
यार
luck
मैं तो
for all
चाहता
the
हूँ कि
future.
मैं तो चाहता हूँ कि और करें मैं चाहता हूँ कि और करें मैं people reach out every now and then they say कि
Exactly.
हम
Yeah.
चाह रहे हैं मीडिया को
Yeah.
कवर करें मैं करो 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 यार I need the competition
Uh,
वरना I'll be stagnant and boring and मैं KEC बन जाऊंगा ना कोई competition नहीं है I'll become pathetic.
that's
I
true.
agree. Yeah.
That's true.
And I think
All
there's
right,
a lot
man.
of action points here in this art session. If you take it with an open mind, and which definitely I learned a lot.
Absolutely.
Definitely, I will try to do a couple of things because we all work with an agency. So if you really want to take some action points, there are beautiful nuggets that you can take and you can do it. And you don't need to like
Yeah.
keep on saying, "यार वो 50% किसके पास है 60% कुछ अपना भी कर लो." I think it will help. Cool.
No,
Thanks,
I
Baba.
think
Lovely talking to you.
just one thing to end off with, right? I think what you said, Babar, which is कि बंदा अपनी personal PR नहीं करता. I say I'm going to lead with that. That even if you're not doing it for the company, do it for yourself. So at least you are established as a brand. All right, man.
बिल्कुल
Peace. Thank you. Take care, man.
Thanks, man.
thank
Have a
you.
Good
good
night.
evening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.